I'm here to confront Alex at Gintani about what the hell is happening with the 720 GTR. There it is, 720 GTR. Let's dive into this, you guys. By the end of this video, we're gonna have a better idea. Is this car gonna be repairable?
The DDE 720 GTR has officially become the most frustrating supercar on YouTube. Think about it, 5 years, an absolute fortune in cash, and endless hours in the shop. And we're still looking at the exact same problem. The car just straight up refuses to run right. We all saw it on the recent rally to Vegas. It wasn't doing anything crazy like blowing up or catching fire. It was just throwing annoying dashboard codes, glitching out, and leaving Damon begging the camera to just let him finish the drive. At this point, nobody is asking what happened to the car anymore. The real question everyone is asking is, when does Damon finally just give up on it? If you know Damon, you already know the answer. He's never going to quit on this build. But man, you have to admit, this car is doing everything it can to try and break him. So how did a dream build turn into such a massive headache? Let's talk about it. To understand why, you have to look at what DDE is actually all about. Damon Fryer started Daily Driven Exotics back in 2012 with a simple mission: build a community of supercar owners who actually drive their cars instead of letting them collect dust. The goal was to push these multi-million-dollar machines to the absolute limit and film every single second. That philosophy to drive everything, film everything, and fix it when it breaks is DDE's biggest strength. But it's also the exact reason the 720 GTR is in this mess. When you take a street car, crank it up to 1,500 horsepower, and force it through cross-country rallies in 110-degree desert heat with no AC, things are going to break. The crazy part is that DDE does this on purpose. The breakdowns aren't a mistake, they are the content. And that brings us right to the 720 GTR. Since 2021, this has easily been the most dramatic, talked about car on the channel. It's given DDE some of its biggest viral hits, but it has also spent way more time in a mechanic's shop than on the road. Damon has even admitted it himself. It is the most loved and the most cursed car in the whole fleet. But honestly, those two things go hand in hand, and it all started back when this thing was just a standard McLaren 720S. Stock, it was already a ridiculously fast supercar with a twin-turbo 4.0-liter V8 making 710 horsepower. But the vision was to transform it into a street-legal tribute to the Senna GTR, McLaren's ultimate track-only hypercar. Taking the most aggressive visual design McLaren ever created and putting it on a car meant for public roads was an incredibly ambitious concept. To pull it off, DDE teamed up with Gintani. They added a wild custom exhaust, a heavy-duty tune, and that aggressive Senna-inspired body kit, wrapped in a custom DDE livery. The 7.2 OGTR instantly became one of the most recognizable cars on automotive YouTube. It was a visual masterpiece that stood out even in a fleet full of exotics, and then it caught fire. It happened in September 2021 during a ride-along with Manny Khoshbin, one of the biggest supercar collectors on the planet. The engine failed catastrophically on video, with parts of the motor literally shooting out of the car before it nearly burned to the ground. Damon suspected a blown turbo was the main culprit. The McLaren community immediately started analyzing the footage. The car had been tuned by Gintani just 3 weeks prior, and car guys pointed out that aggressive use of the anti-lag system created extreme heat and mechanical stress on parts already pushed way past factory limits. Having the engine explode in front of millions of viewers on Manny's massive platform was a total nightmare. But it gave Damon the perfect excuse to do exactly what DDE always does. They sent it back to the shop to be rebuilt with even more power. That first big rebuild was all about fixing the motor and upgrading to a massive Gintani twin turbo kit. When Damon got the call that the car was finally ready to fire up for the first time since the fire, he was already looking for the next crazy project. Before the McLaren even left the lift, Damon was already badgering Alex at Gintani about twin turbocharging DDE's Aventador SVJ. Alex's exhausted response was just, "Bro, let me just get the 720 out of here."
Bro, let me just get the 720 out of here. That's all I want. After that, I'll do 100%.
That quick exchange tells you everything you need to know about DDE. The second one project is almost done. Damon is already planning the next insane build, while his mechanics are just trying to survive the meticulous, high-stakes workload. But the hard work paid off, at least for a minute. The rebuilt twin-turbo 720 GTR hit the streets and made a massive splash at SEMA 2022, shooting flames right down the Las Vegas Strip. Then, just a few months later, the second disaster struck. On December 4th, 2022, Damon was driving the 720 GTR near Long Beach when a Dodge Challenger suddenly swerved into his lane at the last second and smashed right into the McLaren. Luckily, everyone walked away without a scratch. On the side of the road, the Challenger driver was so devastated he was actually in tears, prompting Damon to explicitly ask his viewers not to go after the guy. Damon kept his cool, telling the camera that as long as no one was hurt, it's just a car and you can always build another one.
As long as no one's hurt, it's just, this is just material. Like, you can always live to build another car. I've done it a few times.
It was a surprisingly calm and empathetic reaction for a channel known for wild driving. But the reality was still the same. The car was heading right back into the shop, again. Instead of just fixing the crash damage, Damon used the downtime to plan an absolute transformation. They shipped the McLaren to Creative Bespoke in Phoenix, Arizona to install a massive Duke Dynamics Widebody kit. This was one of the most extreme aero packages ever made for the 720S platform, featuring heavy carbon fiber, massive side skirts, a roof scoop, and a giant rear wing that made the Senna GTR inspiration literal. Fitting it properly took months of meticulous craftsmanship. When they finally revealed the car in April 2024, it looked like a straight-up spaceship. Packing a target of 1,300 wheel horsepower, the team officially called it a resurrection. But the celebration was short-lived. Almost immediately after the reveal, the car started smoking from oil leaks around the turbos. It went straight back to Gintani, and the cycle continued. And, as we saw on that desert road at 5 in the morning, what the 720 GTR is made of, it turns out, is problems. By 2025, the car had spent way more time sitting in a garage than actually out on the road. The main question in the comments changed from, when is it going to be finished, to, is DDE ever going to actually drive this thing? The real issue comes down to physics. McLaren's stock 4.0-liter twin turbo V8 is an incredible engine, but pushing it to 1,500 horsepower puts an insane amount of stress on the internal components. Making that kind of power reliably requires perfect maintenance, specialized fuel, and a conservative tune. But those strict rules don't really work when your job is to make wild YouTube content, shoot massive flames, and push cars to the absolute limit for the camera. Plus, this car isn't treated like a fragile museum piece. DDE doesn't keep it tucked away in a spotless shop. They take it roll racing, film it on the street, and beat on it exactly the way the channel promises. When something breaks, the team has to fix it fast to keep up with a crazy filming schedule. The mechanical toll of that lifestyle has been building up since 2021, and we are still seeing the consequences today. But this is where the story takes a completely wild turn. Recently, DDE dropped yet another revival video. The 720 GTR was officially back from the dead. Instead of easing it in, they immediately entered it into the GoldRush Rally, a brutal 8-day cross-country sprint from Nashville to Las Vegas. Think about that for a second. This is a car that has survived 2 blown engines and non-stop issues with wastegates, oil leaks, and stalling. Yet they threw it right into a multi-state road rally through blistering desert heat with 0 air conditioning. It is the core DDE philosophy operating at absolute full throttle. And what the final day of that rally looked like tells you everything you need to know about the 5-year history of the 720 GTR. The crew rolled out of Salt Lake City at 5 in the morning just to beat the heat since it was tracking to hit 105 degrees in Las Vegas. And the 720 GTR had absolutely no working AC. Within a few miles, the check engine light popped back on with the exact same wastegate actuator fault that had been plaguing them the entire trip. They pulled into a gas station, cleared the code, and kept moving. But Damon had a bigger problem. He couldn't actually verify the oil level. The McLaren's computer requires a perfectly smooth idle at a specific temperature to run its diagnostic countdown, and the engine was running way too rough to stay steady. Knowing they topped it off the day before, he made the executive call to just risk it and keep driving. At the gas station, Damon looked right at the camera and said, "She needs to go back and get completely redone." It wasn't even angry. It was just the calm, completely over it reaction of a guy who has repeated that exact sentence for 5 years straight. What followed was 230 miles of brutal Utah and Nevada desert driving. The engine light would turn on, they'd clear it, the wastegate would glitch out, and the turbos wouldn't make proper boost. The car was running entirely on borrowed time. Somehow, they made it. The 720 GTR officially crossed the finish line on the Las Vegas Strip with a full police escort. At the end, Damon gave a massive shout out to the crew at Cannonball Garage. They had saved the build earlier in the rally by doing roadside repairs on a blown charge pipe, and Damon admitted that without them, the car wouldn't have even survived day 2. Standing at the finish line, Damon told the camera, "I honestly can't believe this car made it." And for once, he meant it completely. The very next morning, the reality of the 720 GTR smacked them right in the face. Damon went to a local cars and coffee event in Las Vegas, had a great time, and walked back out to the hotel parking garage. He hit the start button, and absolutely nothing happened. The car was totally dead. The diagnosis was pure chaos. The positive battery terminal was loose, and something had actually melted right into the battery tray. Insulation from a nearby part had deteriorated, grounded out against the terminal, and completely drained the battery overnight in the 110-degree Vegas heat. What followed is the entire 720 GTR experience, wrapped up in one single morning. Replacing a battery should be a 10-minute job, but on this car, it's a nightmare. To even reach it, you have to remove a bunch of different size brackets. One of those brackets is connected to the aftermarket methanol injection pump, which is tangled up in hoses that barely move. The battery tray can't even slide out because the pump fittings block it. At one point, someone seriously suggested installing the battery from underneath the car, and nobody even laughed because it actually sounded like their only option. During the struggle, someone muttered, "It's not even funny anymore. You can't replace a battery without doing all this." Damon's response was immediate. "Don't even get me started. I'm getting rid of all this." That single comment is the biggest hint we've gotten about the future of this build. He isn't quitting or selling it, but he's finally admitting that this setup is completely unsustainable. 5 years of stacking modification on top of modification has created a car where even basic maintenance requires a team of mechanics. After a brutal, improvised repair session in that boiling garage, they finally got the McLaren fired up. But Damon didn't drive it home. He drove it straight out of the structure, loaded it onto a transport trailer, and shipped it off to Cannonball Garage on the back of a truck. It makes you think back to the finish line the night before, when the GoldRush Rally organizer asked him about his next move. Damon just looked at him and said, "Next time, I'll bring a car that's built." It was easily the most honest moment of the entire rally. Think about the sheer mountain of work this car has swallowed. 2 full rebuilds, a custom twin turbo kit, a massive wide-body transformation, endless tuning sessions, and constant emergency roadside rescues. Yet, it still can't survive a single road trip without a team of mechanics on standby. The wastegates glitch. The battery tray literally melts. The oil burns so fast it needs mid-rally top-offs, and the AC is non-existent. It has become exactly what Damon said, a machine that needs to get completely redone. Now that the car has been shipped off to the McLaren specialists at Cannonball Garage, it looks like that reset is finally happening. Damon's frustration during the battery breakdown, when he threatened to rip out all the extra clutter, points to a systematic teardown of all the aftermarket systems that have made basic maintenance impossible and reliability elusive. The rally revealed a much deeper structural issue with how this car was put together over time. Every single modification adds a layer of complexity. The methanol injection, the intercooler setup, the custom ECU mapping, and the wastegate management all interact with each other, creating problems that are incredibly hard to predict, and even harder to fix without starting fresh. There is a massive difference between a hypercar built from the ground up to handle 1,500 horsepower and a car that was progressively pushed there piece by piece across multiple different shops over a half a decade. This isn't a knock on the mechanics who worked on it, it's just the natural consequence of incremental modification at extreme power levels. The end result is the car we see today, a machine that needs emergency roadside assistance to survive a drive, takes an hour of labor just to swap a battery, and can't even hold a stable idle long enough to check its own oil. So, has DDE finally quit the 720 GTR? Absolutely not. But this Las Vegas chapter is completely different from the fires and highway crashes of the past. Those were dramatic, single-event disasters with clear rebuild narratives. What's happening now is a slow, exhausting mechanical breakdown. The car limped through an 8-day rally on borrowed time, only to die from a loose battery wire the next morning. When Damon said the car needs to get completely redone, he wasn't just venting. The current setup has officially exhausted itself. The next phase can't just be another modification slapped on top of a broken foundation. It requires a systematic teardown at Cannonball Garage to strip away 5 years of accumulated clutter, simplify the wiring, and fix the underlying tuning issues. Whether the channel will actually commit to that level of slow, proper rebuilding instead of another quick content fix is the real question. For 5 years, this car has been running, broken, on fire, crashed, and resurrected as a 1,500 horsepower wide-body monster, only to end up right back on a trailer. As one of the guys helping with the battery perfectly put it, this is officially the best-looking broken car ever. Everybody takes photos of it even when it's dead. That is the absolute reality of the 720 GTR. It looks extraordinary, breaks constantly, and generates massive views precisely because it fails. Damon is never going to give up on it because DDE's entire identity is built on pushing through the chaos. Damon promised he'd bring a built car next time, so another rebuild is definitely coming. The only question left is whether it will finally produce a 1,500 horsepower weapon that actually runs reliably without a rescue crew on standby. The current version of the 720 GTR has officially quit on itself. The car's at Cannonball Garage and the work continues. Tuna No Crust, signing off.